You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Football Podcast, and we are back after an international break that might not have been eventful for a lot of you guys, but for us in Ireland, unfortunately, it was very eventful. Let's just say, and we will leave it at that. Loads of goals in Ireland games these days, but unfortunately, we're still no good at football. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. Delighted to welcome Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke, and I'm relieved for the return of club football here. But we really enjoyed all the feedback from viewers and listeners over the first 3 weeks of the season. They seem to fly by. It was good to get a bit of a break there, but if you can, as ever, just hit that like button. Takes 2 seconds, makes a massive difference to us, just helps get the content out to a wider audience. Insight.matchbook.com. We see loads of you guys going over there. You can get a full bet recap from the guys and take advantage of our exclusive podcast offer. That's pod50. Enter the bonus code pod50, our most generous new customer offer. So if you still haven't signed up, you can just enter the bonus code pod50. You can see the T's and C's on screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get £50 worth in free bets when you bet 50. Full T's and C's are available, as I said, on screen, but also on matchbook.com/promotions. Pretty busy start to the return of the Premier League, guys, but we're going to start with Manchester City versus Manchester United, the Manchester derby on Sunday. Mark, set up for us. This is your 5-10 second window to briefly talk about Ireland if you want to, and then lead us into why we're going to hit the unders in all the markets for the Manchester derby.
Let's leave the international break behind before I depress myself.
Correct.
Yeah, the Manchester derby used to be sort of a kind of must not miss occasion, like Liverpool City, Liverpool Arsenal, that kind of thing. The last derby was pretty dreadful, 0-0, wasn't it, back in April? I'm not expecting a sort of vintage derby this weekend either. It will be built up by the media as a massive match between two enemies. I'm not sure it really is, to be honest. We'll all tune in, obviously, but I just don't expect it to be a thriller. I'm not sure it's going to escalate into anything hugely entertaining. I'm taking a similar approach to the one I took when these sides met back in April, which is to oppose goals, oppose cards. Under 4.5 goals and under 5.5 cards can be combined for a 175 shot. That appeals. The cards line has been sort of been pushed out in the last couple of hours, actually. So by the time kickoff comes around on Sunday, you might actually be able to get a better price or line here if you do want to oppose both goals and cards like I do. I think the match coming immediately after an international break doesn't necessarily help the idea that this match might be end-to-end and entertaining. A lot of players will have been involved for either side on Tuesday night. So to come back into training probably by Thursday with a quick turnaround before the Sunday match. City will be now missing Marmoush. He was injured in the 9th minute of Morocco's match. It's been confirmed he'll miss the weekend. And for United, there's doubts surrounding Cunha, Mount, Dalot. So, I think it's kind of must win, I guess, for City after back-to-back losses, the last of which they just lost all control in the second half against Brighton. And I heard Pat Nevin sort of suggesting that they've lost their aura over the last 12 months or so. And it's difficult to dispute that, really. They didn't do any business at right back. They've strengthened elsewhere. The midfield still looks like sort of, I guess the balance is a bit questionable at times. And the move for Donnarumma and sort of letting Ederson go did feel strange to me, but apparently that's player-led, so I'll leave that there. But despite all that, I did have sort of City down on my shortlist here as in sort of ways to attack this game at 176, thinking that felt more than fair, actually. Although they failed to win 6 of the last 10 home games in the Premier League against Man United, were beaten here as 153 favourites last season. They've not been as big as 175 at home to United since 2018. So I did think the price there looked okay for Man City, because if we look at United, I think the question I had was, have they really closed the gap on City that significantly since these two teams last met at the Etihad when they're about 153, as I say, 153, now they're 176. And I think it's difficult to really justify the fact that United have gotten that much better or City have got considerably worse. It's more City really than United. But what kind of put me off being with the home side was just United's performances when facing big teams under Amorim. I highlighted it before matchday 1 against Arsenal. They have been really competitive in these kind of games. We saw that against Arsenal on matchday 1. They didn't deserve to lose that. We referenced them winning here last season. They've also held City and Arsenal at home, got the better of Arsenal in the FA Cup, held Liverpool at Anfield as well. So they do tend to have some sort of formula for frustrating the bigger teams, the better sides, raising their game in these kind of environments. And whilst the Burnley match on paper looked like it required a late penalty, they're actually pretty good in that game. Only for some more sort of farcical goalkeeping, they should have won that game more comfortably. So we'll see if Lamans comes in and takes over the number 1 position. There should be improvement there. If so, But yeah, I think they can make it awkward for Man City. But I'm going to oppose goals, oppose cards. In terms of the bet I've taken, 17 of the last 20 Premier League meetings between these two have gone under 4.5 goals. Cards-wise, despite it being a supposedly big derby, it's never really been that card heavy. Only 2 of the last 10 Premier League meetings have featured at least 5 cards, only 4 of the past 14 as well. And Anthony Taylor is refereeing this. He's done this fixture 4 times, given 2, 3, 5 and 2 cards. He's given under 3.5 cards in 6 of his last 10 all Big Six matches, and 5 of those 10 featured under 2.5 cards. And if you look at the head-to-head at the Etihad, 6 of the last 7 have featured under 3.5 cards as well. So I'm going to combine under goals and under cards.
Okay, and you get a 1.75 shot there. And Adrian, for you, Manchester Derby, I mean, Mark sort of touched on it there. Question marks over Man City, not just Manchester United here. So it's a fascinating game.
Oh, yeah. You kind of got to watch it, even though it might not be a classic. I agree with Mark, actually. I think that these are two sides that are sort of feeling their way into the season. Obviously, that great start for City at Wolves, but the follow-up performances have been really poor. Obviously, well beaten at Brighton and by Spurs. So, yeah, what are we going to get? And that, we haven't really had to ask that question too often. We did at times last year with City, but in the here and now, they're just not at it. So you don't know what you're going to get. But with Manchester United, you look at their stats this season, they're terrific. They've had way more shots than anyone else. Most facets of their game are going very well. Bruno Fernandes tops a load of individual charts. Yet when you watch them, you're still not sure. Still not sure what they're going to be able to produce. What I do know with United is that they normally reserve their better performances for the big games, don't they, under Amorim? They usually make themselves pretty competitive, even if they aren't quite good enough to win the games. Where I'm sort of sat here on this game, I definitely like the unders. Under 3.5 is the line that I've selected, because 7 of the last 8 derbies, since that 6-3 win for City, by the way, who can forget that one? The 7 of the last 8 since then have all gone under 3.5. As Mark said, it was goalless last time out. No Cunha for United is a blow, but so is the Marmoush absence. What I will say is that Haaland is in good touch. I mean, he got 5, didn't he, for Norway this week? So you would expect him to be a big threat. And I want to pair it with you should regard as a very safe call. It's Man City double chance. They are at the Etihad. And how often do they actually lose at the Etihad Stadium? Not very often at all. It's only really to Spurs, isn't it? The annual defeat to Spurs. Apart from that, they normally win or at worst draw. So obviously Manchester United have had some wins there as well. So that clouds it, I guess. And maybe that's why this is backable, because if you pair Man City double chance with under 3.5 goals, it comes out at 1.94, which I think isn't a bad price at all. You're just backing basically, City not to get beaten by Manchester United, and they really shouldn't. They shouldn't lose 2 home games in a row. That really doesn't happen very often under Pep Guardiola. So I would imagine that this will be scrappy, but that City will come out unscathed. If they don't win it, at worst, surely they draw. Surely they don't get beat here by Manchester United.
Okay, yes. So we have 2 options there. We've got Adrian with Manchester City double chance and under 3.5 goals, 194. Mark with under 4.5 goals and under 5.5 cards at around 1.75. We're going to combine the 2 for our podcast bet builder. That's Manchester City double chance under 3.5 goals and under 5.5 cards. That's a ballpark price around 2.4-ish. But check out insights.matchbook.com to get full T's and C's on that offer. Basically, put £10 on that bet builder, and if it loses, you get your money back as a free bet exclusive to podcast listeners. Let's move, and we're going to start with the early kickoff here. And full disclosure, I don't think this was on our radar, Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest, but I mean, there's so many talking points. Adrian, if you want to start, how different are Nuno and Ange for a start, and how do we try and decide what's going to go on here. I mean, is Ange going to come in and just mess everything up, or is he just going to say, here's a solid back five? I got Arsene Wenger vibes. He's got the back five there ready to go. He can just take on and sign all his attacking players if he hasn't already signed some players in the summer, as some rumours are going about.
Well, yeah, maybe. I was going to say to give a new manager a job just after the window shut seems a bit daft. To me, the Forest squad has been constructed to play with a deep, compact defence and play on the counter-attack. And I think we all know that that's not Ange Postecoglou's preferred tactical approach. In fairness, towards the end of last season, he did bore his way to the Europa League, didn't he? By showing a very different tactical side to his game. He did abandon his principles. But I think it's pretty clear that Ange Postecoglou has been hired by Forest for his style of play. The owner, Marinakis, wants more possession. He wants more excitement. He wants more goals. He wants more front foot football. So what's he going to do at Arsenal? I mean, it would be a bad first impression in front of the owner to go and park the bus and to be super, super defensive, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the best. But at the same time, you think, well, wouldn't it be a little bit crazy to go and press high and have a high line where the Forest players aren't really accustomed to it? So it is fascinating. I think the tactics will probably fall somewhere in between. You can't get Milenkovic and Murillo suddenly to squeeze up to the halfway line, when they're not used to it. What I will say is that Forest have changed their style of play a bit already this season. They've had more successful passes than anyone else, which is nuts. More passes into the final third than anyone else. Their possession average is 57%. So he has actually, and they've been winning a lot of high turnovers. So Nuno was in the process of changing the style. But yeah, they have had 3 relatively easy fixtures. Would they actually do that at Emirates Stadium? It remains to be seen. So yeah, it's really interesting appointment. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to hear from Mark before I get stuck into the game itself.
Yeah, maybe Mark, you lead in with your thoughts and then give us your bet and go back to Adrian. Have you seen that change in style of play with Nuno in the first 3 games that Adrian's touched on? He did also caveat with the easy fixture bit as well.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say really, which he tailed off with. Yeah, I mean the fixture list has been kind, and yeah, I've not been overly impressed by what I've seen so far. They've, bar that sort of opening 45 minutes against Brentford, who was sort of retooling themselves after what's been a really difficult summer. They've not really shown up a huge amount, and yeah, it's this has become a very different game than what we thought it would be on Monday morning, and what Arsenal were preparing for on Monday morning. Suddenly, it's a significant change in style, in system, in approach. Incredibly brave move from Nottingham Forest that could easily backfire. We know Marinakis, and that fractious relationship between Nuno and Edu and Marinakis was one of the reasons that I kind of felt that they could regress this season. I didn't expect it to blow up in early September, but as much as I love Postecoglou's character, his approach, his way of thinking, it's hard to see Forest sort of totally changing shape and enjoying immediate success. You're moving from a really sort of reactive low block counter-attack to high line, high press, aggressive, all-out attack almost, and trying to do it without a pre-season, just days of preparation before a big game away at Arsenal. And the issue with the timing is most of these players will be away with internationals coming back this midweek. They've got Arsenal away on Saturday, and then there's literally no break for Forest because they're in Europe. So next midweek there's League Cup, and the week after you're basically into the Europa League. So I don't know where he's going to get the time in the training ground to get the best out of these players in the way he wants to play. So, I think Adrian's right. There might be a sort of a middle ground here, because Milenkovic, as superb as he was last year in Nuno's system, he is a guy who can be seriously exposed in high lines, and that's where his massive flaws were before he came to English football. So, and I think it's worth mentioning too, Forest have been exceptional from set pieces under Nuno, both for and against, really, and that's certainly been an area of weakness for Tottenham and Postecoglou in the past too. So that edge might also erode as well. But in terms of this game, I think Adrian's right. It wouldn't be a great look if they went here and put 10 men behind the ball and tried to play out for a point. I think Forest and Ange will possibly look at Arsenal and believe there's something in this for them. No Saliba for Arsenal. I presume Mosquera will come in for a full debut. I think there might be a chance for them to unsettle that back line. Arsenal struggled at times last season breaking down sort of low block defences, but I don't think Forest will do that. So, Forest have been really sloppy defensively this season. That's what I was going to say at the start. They've conceded 4 goals through really sort of sloppy mistakes or silly fouls as well. But they have tended to give it a decent go at top 6 teams. So they've lost 10 of the last 12 trips to top 6 teams, but they've conceded plenty of goals in those times as well. So I think when you look at the Forest squad, there's enough ability in that team to cause Arsenal problems, enough ability potentially to get on the score sheet and make a bit of a game of it. And I've kind of gone from backing Arsenal to win this game in a low-scoring match to actually thinking it could be a bit more open because Ange is involved. As I say, Forest have shipped 3 goals or more in 6 of the last 9 trips to a top 6 finisher. So if Ange does kind of rip the form book up and sort of change approach, then I think there's goals in this for Arsenal. So I've gone Arsenal to win and over 2.5 goals at 2.12. I did toy with the idea of Arsenal to win and both teams to score because of the Ange influence, and it's 3.5, so it's a nice big price. But I'll keep it relatively simple, the win and over 2.5 goals, because I think Arsenal could easily cover this themselves if they're on it. Madueke's had a great week. I thought he was one of the bright lights when he went to Anfield and lost that tight match too. So even without Saka, I think there's enough ability in Arsenal to score a couple of goals here and win the game.
Okay, big jump from the Arsenal win price of 1.4, and Adrian, you're going to combine that with under 4.5 goals.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see where Mark's coming from there. But yeah, I'm going to play it a little bit safer. I don't think, Ange will not want to get tonked on his first day there. I think they will press high at times, and I think they will try and keep it. But for the most part, I still expect Arsenal to push them back, and then they'll settle back into that more comfortable setup that they're used to. You can't play Milenkovic and Murillo up on the halfway line. If they do, Mark's bet will come in for sure. I personally think it'll be under 4.5 goals. It's only happened 3 times at Emirates Stadium in the Premier League since the start of last season. It's as in 5 goals or more. Leicester City 4-2 at the start of last season. The Man City game where Arsenal hammered them, and the Leeds game recently. So we don't see many games at Emirates Stadium get out of control and escalate. So I think it'll be more of a controlled win for Arsenal. Arsenal need to create more in open play. I mean, the expected goals in open play is the second lowest. Now, they have had tough fixtures, obviously Liverpool away, Man United away, but even so, second lowest in the league, with Sunderland the only one with less. That's mildly concerning. So there needs to be more from Arsenal's attacking midfielders, the wingers. They need to express themselves with a little bit more freedom, play with more intensity. And if they do, I think they've got a great chance against a Forest team that will have new ideas in their head. So, and that could create issues. You've got a new manager telling you to do new things, and all it takes is that little one moment of hesitation, and Arsenal could be on them. So, yeah, I think Arsenal should win the game, but I don't think it'll be high scoring. It's not as an attractive price, maybe for obvious reasons, but you can get Arsenal on side at 1.76 if you think there'll be less than 5 goals.
Okay, yeah, options there, but both favouring Arsenal ultimately to win the game. Moving on to Everton versus Aston Villa. We'll start with you, Mark. I mean, these two sides have had contrasting starts to the season. The prices, incidentally, Everton 2.58, Villa 3.1, the draw 3.4. If they all sound like good prices, the over-end currently on Matchbook is actually below 100%. So you probably would be within your rights to nearly back everything and lock in a 0.08% profit mark. But which way are you heading for this game? Because as I said, where do you draw the line?
That already, isn't he?
He's probably all over that. That's a Rick if I ever saw one, at least above the board, Rick. But yeah, both. It's hard to know, Mark, isn't it? Because both these sides, Everton definitely started the season well. Grealish looks unbelievable, 4 assists, and Villa, I wouldn't say shambles, but not far off it. Particularly as someone who has Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers in his fantasy team, it's not going well this season.
It's not. Villa are a team I've struggled to place coming into the season. One week I had them sort of, vying for another top 4, top 5 finish. And another week, I sort of had them sort of regressing back into mid-table. I sort of flip-flopped with that feeling. And before a ball was kicked on the eve of the season, I was quite positive, actually, on where Villa were, because they'd kept Watkins, they'd kept Martinez at that time. And I thought there was going to be improvements made to the squad. But the early evidence sort of suggests things might be going the other way. They've been very, very lackluster. They haven't scored a goal yet. They've really lacked creativity. they've appeared to try and just fill the team out with central midfielders at times, and the bench has looked pretty weak for a side who have sort of high expectations and ambitions. Will be playing in Europe as well. So I know UEFA's squad cost controls have made transfer business very difficult for them to do, but I've thought they've looked weaker than last season's, and quite a bit weaker actually too. Harvey Elliott is an exciting signing, at least. I still believe Evan Gassan will make a positive impact when he's integrated into the team, and at least the Emi Martinez issue has been resolved, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, whether his head's in it or not. But Kamara and Onana should be back fit and available for the weekend. That's a plus. And yeah, there's kind of hope that the break will have done them some good and they can come back and almost start again, really, because but I'm not completely convinced based on, I know it's only 3 games worth of evidence, but it's been poor. And this is a team who have lost 10 of their 20 away Premier League games now, going back to the start of last season. So yeah, I want to get against them here, actually. You could argue home advantage is kind of diluted here with this being only Everton's second Premier League game in the new stadium, but I thought their fans made a right good racket in that opening game against Brighton. It looked like it could and should be a real force for them this season to play at home. They've recovered really well from that Leeds loss on match day 1, where they didn't look quite ready in terms of team selection and performance. Sort of barely whispered a whimper really on that occasion. And yeah, Grealish has come back into the team. He's been a real shining light, rediscovering his love. He's a serious weapon on that left. But I think Kiernan Dewsbury Hall as well deserves a shout out, because he's been playing much closer to goal, has had more shot creating actions than any other Everton player. And just having those two in the team, it's allowed Limon and Jai to sort of concentrate on getting more into the penalty area and rather than sort of shouldering all of the creative responsibility himself. So I've liked what they've been doing going forward. And at the back, you've got Jared Braithwaite, I think, is due back from injury as well now this weekend. So I think there are positives surrounding Everton right now. And if you look at their record under David Moyes, 22 Premier League games, just the 5 defeats. Now, one of those was against Villa, right back at the very beginning of his tenure. But I think Everton have moved forward a number of knots since then, and perhaps Aston Villa have not. So I very nearly put up Everton plus 0 on the Asian handicap around 183, but I think for a slightly shorter price, we can get a bit more on our side here. So if you dip into a bet builder, you'll be able to back Everton double chance and both teams to collect a booking at 175. So we're getting paid if it is a draw rather than just a push, just as long as both teams get booked. And you know, they have done in all of their Premier League games so far this season. And we have got Simon Hooper in charge here, who's averaging around about 5 cards per game in 30 league games going back to the start of last season. So you're expecting 3, 4, 5 cards here. In theory, we should get one for each team. So it's just a different way of approaching it. But I do fancy Everton to avoid defeat.
Okay, that's currently priced at 175, as Mark mentioned. And Adrian, the first thing I said to Mark, you've got the form team versus a team that was rated a lot higher at the start of the season. And I guess you're falling down the other side of the coin there in that regard.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way and just say that Villa are a better team than Everton. They're a better team than they've showed so far this season, and you know, sooner or later it's going to click. And I think after a break, look, there's no arguments. They've been poor so far. You know, really bad by their own high standards. Haven't been anywhere near good enough. But they've had a break, and they will come back with real determination. And even though they've not played at Hill Dickinson Stadium, they have an amazing record against Everton in particular. That Everton are winless in their last 12 Premier League matches against Villa. Villa always seem to win, or they used to win at Goodison. They normally see them off on home turf as well. They have an amazing record against them. So they'll go there with a bit of confidence that, and maybe Everton will look at it, not Villa, you know, we don't have a good record against them. I'm not sure Branthwaite's going to be back. I've read some reports that say Moyes will just ease him in a little bit more gently. So we'll have to wait until kickoff for that, obviously. But my concern with Everton is not going forward. Absolutely superb. Grealish and Jai, Dewsbury Hall, all had great starts to the season. It's actually what they do without the ball. And that game against Brighton at Hill Dickinson Stadium, they could easily have conceded 4 goals in that game. And they weren't exactly watertight in their other appearances either. Obviously, a great result at Molineux, winning 3-2, but gave up a lot of chances, good chances. They've actually faced the second highest number of shots, Everton, in the Premier League this season. And they've played Leeds, Brighton and Wolves. for me, you know, Villa are probably a better side than all of those. So that's where I have a little bit of a concern for Everton. So I'm gonna flip it around with Elliott maybe coming into the side. I don't know about Sancho, but you know, the returning Camera I think will be really important. Maybe Onana too. I can see Villa getting their first goals of the season and their first, you know, points, you know, first meaningful points. So I'm going to go with Villa on the handicap plus a quarter of a goal. So we get a profit if they don't lose. Obviously, half the stakes on draw no bet, half with a half goal start. So yeah, even if they draw the game, we still make money, and I actually think that they can potentially go and win there. So yeah, I'm going to go with Villa plus a quarter, 1.81.
Okay, fascinating game. Both could see go a number of different directions. Villa maybe getting back on track. Everton continuing their good start to the season. So take your pick either way there. You've seen the match with Bet and Exchange in action there. Mark dipped into the bet builder to look for a value, whereas Adrian taking the Asian handicap. So you can do the benefits of an exchange, but also the benefits of a sports book there as well. I mean, that isn't a TV game, but the one that is on Saturday, really looking forward to this. West Ham United versus Spurs. And we'll start with you, Adrian. West Ham 3.5, Spurs 2.2 away, and the draw 3.7. Bournemouth did a bit of a job on Thomas Frank's Spurs, I thought, before the international break. So I'm really another fascinating game, I guess, to decide which way this one's going to go, because West Ham obviously got their season off to finally a good start with that win at Forest.
Yeah, it pleased me on two fronts, that Bournemouth win at Spurs. I tipped it up on the show, and obviously Spurs losing is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, this is hard. This is a hard one to call, because obviously West Ham were dreadful, weren't they? Prior to their visit to Nottingham Forest, absolutely appalling, battered by Chelsea on home turf, and you think with it, and they've been battered by Arsenal at home, Liverpool at home. You know, have they got an issue at London Stadium? You'd ordinarily think they've got no chance against Tottenham the way they're playing, but then they go to Forest and really turn it on, and it was an outstanding performance. It dumped my best bet in the bin, and I'm sure it trashed a load of coupons as well, because no one was tipping up West Ham to get anything at Forest. Yet they win 3-0, and deservedly so. Scored some good goals. Somerville coming in elevated them, as did Mateus Fernandes, the signing from Southampton. I think Fulkrug's missing, so a bit might rest on Callum Wilson here. But they'll come into the game feeling better about themselves. Spurs, you just don't know where we're at with Spurs. 1 minute they can beat City, the next they throw in a pretty poor performance against a Bournemouth. There's a stat I spotted ahead of this game. They've lost 17 of their last 23 Premier League games that haven't been against newly promoted teams. So basically, Spurs have only really been beating newly promoted sides and City, really, in the not too distant past. So, it's hard to get onside with Spurs, even though I think Kolo Muani and Siemens will add plenty to them. They've made some good signings, I think. I just find it a really kind of a trappy game, because I'm not fully sure I can trust either team. By the way, the last 3 times this match has been played at London Stadium, it's finished 1-1. So keep your eye on that one. That's 7.8 on the correct score market. I want both teams to score, because I don't really trust either side defensively. West Ham looked good going forward the other day, so I would back them to score. I think they've scored 6 in a row at home as well, going back into last year. Spurs always score, don't they? Almost always score. I know it's a different manager now, but it's very rare for Tottenham to blank. I think they've scored in 14 of their last 17 matches, Tottenham. So both teams to score sits really nicely with me. And because I'm so stuck, I'm just going to go under 4.5, because I don't think Thomas Frank is anywhere near as bold as obviously his predecessor. So I think he will, he won't go there with punchy, adventurous tactics particularly. Potter, it's a big game for Potter, in front of his home supporters. Bought himself some time, needs to not get beaten heavily here. So I don't see this being a massively high scoring game. So both teams score on its own is 1.7. Not great. But if you with under 4.5, it jumps nicely to 2.15, which I like, because I don't have to cheer on either team. And a whole range of scorelines get on our side, particularly the 1-1, the 2-2, or the 2-1, either way. So yeah, that's my take on the game.
Yeah, it might be the theme of the weekend, Mark, but some of these games are tough to call in terms of result. Everton Villa in particular, and this game seems under similar lines as well.
Yeah, echo a lot of what Adrian said, really. From West Ham perspective, it looked like Graham Potter's job was on the line before that Forest match, but he changed shape and managed to engineer a great result and a much improved performance. It was only their 6th win in 24 games under Potter's watch since January. So he's definitely not out of the woods, but there were positives. For the most part, he sets up West Ham in a back 3, back 5. He only 4 times as he sort of utilised a back 4. And he did that at Forest, and the system made much more sense, I thought, with the signings that they've made. Ward-Prowse and Souček perhaps still a weakness in that central midfield area, but Magassa, a signing from Monaco, adds a lot of energy in that deeper role if required. You got Mateus Fernandez and Lucas Paqueta sort of swapping positions, allowing Bowen to sort of stay on the right, Juve and Walker Peters down the fullback options. Juve loves to get forward and create width too. So the issue, as Adrian said, is now up front with Fulkrug's fitness. Do you start Callum Wilson or move Bowen up top? That's an area they are light on. But they are unbeaten in 5 against Spurs at the London Stadium, and 9 of the last 11 between these two teams have seen both teams scoring, and I think that's the sort of angle I want to explore as well. West Ham games at the London Stadium against the better sides have tended to be goal heavy. If we expect Spurs to be around the sort of top 6 mark, West Ham have seen 6 of the last 8 at home against top 6 finishers feature over 3.5 goals, which included that shocker against Chelsea on match day 2. So expecting goals here, because Tottenham, as Adrian says, we don't really know what to expect from them based on what we've seen so far this season. And West Ham won't swarm around their midfield quite like Bournemouth did and make life as difficult. So I expect Tottenham to have the lion's share of possession and be the sort of dominant force as the market suggests. But defensively, just 5 clean sheets away from home since the start of last season. They have conceded in 12 of the last 14 trips to West Ham as well. But going forward, I don't think you've got any real doubts about the ability in that squad now. Kudus, Xavi Simons, Kolo Muani, Richarlison, Solanke. That's quite an exciting forward line from a Spurs perspective. So it's going to be difficult for West Ham to keep them out. So I'm going to combine both teams to score with both teams to collect at least 1 card. 5 of the last 6 meetings have seen at least 4 cards. 7 of the last 9 in West Ham have seen at least 4 cards as well. Now, Jared Gillette is the referee. He's not the most card heavy, but he's still averaging just shy of 4 cards per game since the start of last term. So that should be enough to get us a card for each team.
Okay, yeah. So a couple of ways to play that. Both looking at both teams to score to layer as the starting point for both their bets there. Insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks as we move on to any other bets. And we might start with you this time, Adrian. We've 2 selections from the EFL. So we've had the week break, at least in the Championship. So first one, Swansea to beat Hull, 185.
Yeah, I don't really like Hull. I think Hull are going to struggle this season. They're facing a lot of shots, second most in the division. I think 72 shots they face. Their expected goals against is the second most as well, behind Wrexham, which is interesting. But yeah, their expected goals is really, really high. And in the last 3 games, they've kind of deteriorated. They let in 2. The next game, they let in 3. And the last game, they let in 4. So they went into the break in a pretty bad vein of form, particularly defensively. And then I come up against Swansea, who I didn't expect much of this season, if truth be told. But they've started well, and they've started really solidly. And that is going to be the cornerstone of their potential success this season. Their expected goals against across 4 games so far is 1.79, which is amazing. They are basically giving nothing away. They faced very few shots. Really well organised under Alan Sheehan, who's done a really quietly good job. He's only lost 4 of 19 since taking over. He's won 10 of those 19. And at home, they've got 6 wins, 2 draws and 1 defeat. So, they're feeling good about things. And that's mainly against teams that are better than Hull. I also think Swansea signed some quite talented players in the window. They got Adam Eder, didn't they, from Celtic? I'm not his biggest fan, but he's in the Championship. I think he could help Swansea. That was probably the missing link, really. They got Vipotnik, but yeah, they didn't have a lot of firepower. So we'll see how he gets on. But yeah, I just this one out because it feels like a strong shout for a home win, and they're at a backable price. Swansea, you can just back them on the nose at 1.85, which is what I'm very happy to do.
Okay, and second selection, Bradford versus Huddersfield. Both teams to score 1.8.
Yes, yeah. So I've seen a lot of Bradford actually in the flesh this season. I've seen them a couple of times, and I like them. And they're a good side. They've got a lot of quality players, a lot of good forwards. The defence isn't great. They've given up a lot of chances. I was there at the weekend when they lost to Doncaster 3-1, and they got ripped apart at times. But they play very, they try and be bold, and they want to win games, even though they don't have a lot of the ball. They want to be positive under Graham Alexander. And Huddersfield are kind of similar. They're a good team, signed some superb players in the summer, and they'll be there or thereabouts, I think, in terms of the playoffs or maybe the automatics. I like both teams to score here. Really like it. Huddersfield matches average over 3 a game, 3.14 a game. Huddersfield have scored in every single game. And interestingly, Huddersfield let in 3 at Blackpool and 3 at Barnsley, and they're their last 2 away games. So on the travels, not watertight at all, Huddersfield. And Bradford definitely have the minerals and the players to cause them problems. And I would fully expect Huddersfield to score against this Bradford defence. Both teams of scorers landed in 6 or 7 for Bradford, only 1 clean sheet. They've scored in 6 of their 7 games as well, Bradford. So, yeah, it feels to me like a very BTTS game. A bit of a derby. It'll be a great atmosphere. Yeah, I can see this being a fun game. So, yeah, Bradford, Huddersfield, both teams score 1.8.
Okay, that's our 2 EFL selections. In any other bets, moving to France, Mark, and you have 2 picks there, so take it away, Bob.
Yeah, Metz are playing Angers on Sunday. Not expecting fireworks here. Metz newly promoted, facing an Angers side who were promoted last season, and despite all the odds going against them, managed to stay and survive in the top flight. Expecting both teams to be battling around the bottom end of the table. Just surprised to see the goal line here at 2.5. Expected it to be a 2.0 or 2.25 line, actually. So I think there's value in going against goals and back in the unders at 183. We're only 3 games into the season. Metz are pointless, have twice conceded 3 goals in a game. Angers have 4 points, but there's only been 4 goals in their 3 games. Collectively, these 2 teams have scored just 4 goals in those 6 combined games. And that's a real area of weakness for both teams, creating and converting. Metz were promoted, saw 3 key forwards depart in the summer, all to English football. Diallo, Gueye and Sabali really sort of weakening them. They've since brought back Habib Diallo from Saudi Arabia, but it's clearly a struggle for them right now in attack. They're averaging just 0.9 expected goals, creating only 2 big chances, and have managed the fewest shots on target across the first 3 rounds. And you've got Angers, who haven't fared much better in all honesty. They're generating 0.81 expected goals, having just 7 shots per game, both the second worst figures in the division. And there's only been 10 big chances across their 3 games in total. So an average of 2.22 expected goals. And yeah, like Metz, they saw their best player or players leave in the transfer window. Esteban Laporte, who scored 9 of their 32 league goals last season, went to Rennes. They barely spent a penny. They operate on one of the lowest wage budgets in the Division 2, and the squad is just massively short on quality. So I think it's one of those where you just shut the curtains and later on have a look in the garden, see it ended 0-0 and not be too surprised, really. So unders at 183, I think, is the play to take there. And then, yeah, Rennes play Lyon in the big game on Sunday night. Lyon are favourites to win this game, and I just want to oppose that view. They have started brilliantly, 3 wins from 3, which is an excellent return, backed up by their data too. Very creditable performances, though. A red card definitely helped them against Marseille last time out. Callum Morton from Liverpool has had a really been a standout season so far. He's been pulling up trees. But just before the window closed, they sold their best striker, Georges Mikatadze, the Georgian, to Villarreal without a proper replacement coming in. Ryan Cherki obviously also left in the summer too. Now, Lyon aren't normally trustworthy on their travels either. They've lost 6 of the last 11 away league games. And they just look a little bit short here, considering they're playing a Rennes team who had a nightmare season last year, but they still managed to bag 9 wins in 17 at home. That includes beating Lyon here, as they have done in 3 of the last 4 home fixtures against Lyon. If we exclude last season's top three, Rennes went 9 wins, 1 draw, and 4 defeats at home. As I say, it was a pretty forgettable campaign, but they still managed to churn out some positive results. And they're a very ambitious club. They've got a decent budget, a very good youth academy. They have lost Callum Wendo to Forest, Triffer to English football as well, but they've reinvested pretty well. Esteban Laporte, as I said, has been signed from Angers, Merlin from Marseille, and Bolo Rongier. Their issue so far this season has been red cards. So they received 1 against Marseille on the opening day, but still managed to win that game. They've received 2 against Lorient in their second match, and then lost that match 4-0, but held Angers away last week or before the international break, and were the better team. So I think back at home, they're more than capable of getting something here. So toyed with taking Rennes plus a quarter on the Asian handicap, but we can actually back Rennes double chance and under 4.5 goals for a very similar price, 175. Just 5 of their combined 36 home and away league games since the start of last season featured 5 goals or more. 28 of those produced 0 to 3 goals. So if we take that price or that bet, basically we're backing Rennes to win 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1 or 3-1, as well as the 0-0, 1-1 and 2-2 draws. So a whole load of correct scores on side for 175 if you want to oppose Lyon in that game.
Okay, 2 selections there in League On. We'll move on to our long shots, Adrian. I'm very much looking forward to this. Mark touched on watching games behind the curtains, close the curtains, look out and there'll still be no goals. You had success with this maybe week 1, week 2. I think it was week 2 with an under 2.5 double. You're happy to put that up, and you're going for a treble this time, the long shot. So take it away. Why these 3 games? We'll see very little goals. Let's go for it. Nice. 1, 2, 3.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Well, there were a few games I looked at. I thought, I don't fancy goals there. I don't fancy goals there. So I thought, let's do a little combo. We'll start at Accrington. Accrington entertained Colchester in League 2. This is fun. 2 of their combined 14 league matches so far have gone over 2.5 goals. So 6 of 7 for both have seen unders land. So they've been involved in some pretty turgid games so far. Both managers under a little bit of pressure, I think it's fair to say. So I think that has to go on the coupon straight away. Charlton Millwall, early kickoff in the Championship, bit of a derby in South London, and not expansive teams. I think it's fair to say Charlton have been involved in a lot of low-scoring, tight games so far. 3 of their 4 have gone under 2.5 goals. Both teams, Millwall actually are not in great form. So they've failed to score in 2 of their 4 games so far, Millwall. It's the same for Charlton. So neither team sort of firing at the top end of the pitch, it's fair to say. And with it being a derby, I kind of fancy that one to be a bit ugly and potentially low scoring. And then last but not least, Southampton entertained Pompey, the first South Coast derby since 2012 in the league. So this is much anticipated. And you know what I'm going to say here? Both teams are going to look at it as a must not lose. We must not get beat here. Pompey are actually ahead of Southampton in the table. First time that's happened for a long, long time. And look, Pompey are obviously Southampton would be favourites, big favourites for a reason. They've got a lot of new players, lots of new players. I'm not sure, it might take a little bit of time for them all to bed in. Portsmouth are really solid. 3 of their 4 games have gone under 2.5 goals so far this season. They've only let in 3 goals. I think the 2 of those goals in the game against Norwich came from set pieces. So they've been very well drilled by John Bassini. They're quite happy not having that much of the ball, Pompey, playing on the transition. So I think Pompey can, again, make it a scrappy South Coast derby at Southampton and really sort of kill the vibes down there. So that's what I'm hoping for anyway. So if you chuck in all of those unders, shouts, the first 2 were heavy odds on, by the way. Southampton one is even money on its own. You combine them all, it comes out at 5.2, which is a nice little long shot.
Okay, yeah, love it. Looking forward to seeing how that goes. Very much updates on the phone rather than trying to tune in for any of those games by the sounds of things. Now, long shots, Mark, I'm not going to lie, I had a quick look at your 3 long shots this season. I think in another season we could be 3-0, yet we're 0-3 and 1 goal off United. Arsenal drawn under 2.5 goals. Then we had St Mirren to beat Rangers. They got themselves in position to win that game, and then Liverpool, Arsenal drawn, both teams to score, albeit Arsenal probably never looked like scoring there. Take it away with a selection here, and it is on the Manchester derby. You're effectively laddering your bet from your main selection.
Yeah, we're just taking a line lower on both the goals and 2 lines lower on the cards. Under 3.5 goals and under 3.5 cards, which comes in at 4.5, which I think is a very tasty price. Adrian's already expecting a low-scoring game. He went for under 3.5 goals in his main selection. I'm certainly not expecting a classic. I think Man United have developed a formula to frustrate and compete against the big boys, as they did at the Etihad last season. And Man City aren't exactly flourishing themselves. No Marmouche either. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this one sort of fail to fire, actually. And I think under 3.5 goals is a nice first way in. But to combine it with under 3.5 cards, as I say, Anthony Taylor is the referee here, who we touched on many times last season. He's done 4 derbies before, and in 2 of those he gave under 2.5 cards, let alone 3. And in 5 of his last 10, all Big Six matches, he's given under 2.5 cards as well. So we've got 0 to 3 cards and 0 to 3 goals on side here, and we're getting a 4.5 shot, which I think is a really nice price to cheer on in a game we probably will watch, but might not completely explode into entertainment. So big price to cheer on.
No, unfortunately, we've no option but to watch the 4:30 Super Sunday game. Unfortunately, but maybe dip into red zone 30 minutes to go if it's looking like the way Mark potentially thinks it might. We've got best bet time now, Adrian. Burnley versus Liverpool. I mean, is Isak going to start? How does this new Liverpool team look like? And then going into this game, what bet do you fancy away to Burnley? Might just throw this to you, Mark. We might get Adrian back in a sec. Your best bet comes from Japan.
Yeah, a rare trip to the Far East. But it's a fantastic league this season, the J League. You've 6 sides separated by only 4 points at the top of the league. So an incredible title race is developing with a quarter of the campaign left to play. One of the teams in the hunt is Kashima Antlers. They are 4th right now. They are 2 points off the top, and they've just recovered from a pretty poor summer run to post 3 wins in 5 unbeaten games to get right back on track into that title race. They produced their best work at home this season, 9 wins from 14 home fixtures. That includes going 5 from 5 when hosting bottom 8 teams. And that's what they have here, really. Shonan Bellamy, the opposition, they are in the bottom 4. They're in the relegation zone. They are 3rd bottom. They've started the season, though, with 3 straight wins and were unbeaten after match day 5. But since match day 5, they've lost 15 of 23, including 9 of 11 away from home. They are winless since early May, losing 8 of 12. They have conceded multiple goals in 6 of the last 7, 21 goals conceded in that 7-game sample, and they've lost 8 of 10 trips to top 13 teams, developed that into top 9 teams, and they've lost 6 of 7 by an aggregate of 2 to 16. So this is all backed up by the data as well. If you look at Shonan's record, bottom for expected points, bottom for expected goals ratio, bottom for shot ratio, bottom for shots in the box ratio, big chance supremacy, they are bottom again. So across a range of metrics, they have not been performing all season, but their more recent form has been pretty dreadful too. So the way in which I will attack this is to back Kashima Antlers to win and under 4.5 goals at 186. Just 5 of their combined 56 J-League games this season have featured 5 goals or more. So you've got the 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1 and 3-1 on your side to support the Antlers.
Okay, yeah, maybe first time we've had a Japanese best bet, definitely anyway, Mark, which is great to see you, Mark. For anyone new to the podcast this season, perhaps Mark follows a lot of leagues. We'll leave it at that. He knows ball. Adrian, keeping it simple with the Premier League, mate. We gave you the big build up. I effectively said Isak, is he going to start? And then what bet do you like, Burnley versus Liverpool?
I don't think he starts, does he? I mean, he's not played a lot of football, and Ekitike hasn't exactly been poor. Been impressed with Gakpo as well. So I would have thought he comes in off the bench, but look, we'll have to wait and see. He costs a lot of money, Alexander Isak. No, look, it's a bit route one this, but I can't believe the price. I just can't believe it, because Liverpool at 1.36 to win at Burnley. Yeah, that feels about right. You get a jump to 2.34 if you think they'll win to 0. And I think they'll win to 0. It's pretty simple. Look, Liverpool are going to score. They've scored in 37 consecutive Premier League matches. They're closing in on the record there. So they're going to score. There's no doubt about that in my mind that will happen. And then you're thinking, well, probably score multiple goals. And you know, are Burnley going to have enough to hurt them? And Burnley in the Championship last year struggled to score goals at home. Very rarely did they get more than 2. It was often, it was ones that got them over the line. A lot of 1-0ers. So, they're up against a formidable Liverpool side here. I just don't know if I can see them hurting Liverpool. And you've also got to factor in here, I think, Scott Parker. Now, Mark's mate got beat 9-0, didn't he? The last time he faced Liverpool. He hasn't faced them since as a manager. And it's got to be on his mind. And for that reason, I fully expect him to set Burnley up quite cautiously. I know that they scored twice against Sunderland, scored twice at Old Trafford brilliantly, actually. I thought, showed some real good threat. But I don't know if they're going to be bold enough to do that against Liverpool at home. I think they be pushed back, and it could be quite a sterile game. Where Liverpool are just trying to break down the sort of mass ranks. I think he could go back to a back five, like he did for Tottenham on the opening day. So, I think this is going to be a bit of a grind maybe for Liverpool, but ultimately I expect them to win 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0 at Turf Moor and get the job done. And hopefully we can pick up our winnings at 2.34.
Yeah, big jump, as you mentioned, from 1.3, 1.4-ish to 2.34, Adrian. So we'll lock that in as well. And we're done. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. We will be back for the Champions League podcast next week alongside the Premier League action. So plenty of football coming your way over the next few weeks before, unfortunately, we have another international break in about 4 weeks. So very much not looking forward to that from an Irish perspective. See, Adrian, you don't know how lucky you have it with following England, mate, and all their boring qualifiers that you get. 1-0s, 2-0s, but you actually went and scored 5 goals against Serbia. So that's great. Unfortunately for myself and Mark, it's a lot tougher. But before we go, if you do have 2 seconds and you're watching on YouTube, we have about 40 people watching on the live stream. Plus, if you're watching back, if you just hit that like button, it'd be much appreciated and helps our content get out to a wider audience. We have a busy week next week. We will chat to you then. Enjoy the weekend's football. Bye-bye.